All right, so first thing you want to do is take the plugs. Often with these ones, you need to just tighten them up because they're quite loose. Just tap off any extra food, put them over there. If there's any large bits of food and debris, like that, oops, like that, you take that out. Obviously, you don't try and rinse that down the plug itself. Find the bin. If you can't find a bin, just put it in one of our bin liners and we'll take it away. For what I'm doing, I'll just put it over here for now, so it's out of the way. Then you want to rinse down the sink. So these taps are really good. If you've got a tap like this, you can use the rinse function really easily. If you don't have one of these to use, that's what the jug's for. All right. So when you've done that, bit of Jif, both sinks. And then basically you want to get that into a lather and just go around the sink itself. And similar to when you're doing in the bathroom with shower screens, it's often the feel. When it's rough and you can feel things grating, it's dirty. When it gets smooth, chances are you've actually cleaned it. You want to get around inside the plug itself, the sink hole. And if you find any more bits and pieces, get that out of the way. And that's where the brush comes in. So if you do the sink, a hole, and you see there's, you know, in the joins and connecting bits there, still a little bit of stuff, you just get that in there. Again, like the microwave, you probably don't need to scrub that hard. It's just about getting access into it. Like that. All right, I'll just put a bit more water on my thing and we'll do the other little sink. So most sinks have two sinks in them nowadays. One's usually the smaller one. Then we have the plugs next. So for those of you at home, one of the ways you can find out if your cleaner is actually doing a good job or not a half-hearted job, check the top of the plug, which is the bit you'll see, then flip it around and have a look at the bottom. So if you can see that, that's really dirty. This is going to take me 30 seconds to make it look like it's basically brand new. And that's a really good way to find out if your cleaner is cutting corners or not. So fold this in half, this is probably the easiest way to do this, and you just basically go around that pin with the non-scratch scouring pad, like that, and go around that part between the rubber and the edge, like so. Just tighten that up a bit, there we go. And then the same on the top, you just use that and you sort of go around the pin part, like so, like that. You can also use the brush, so you can see in here, there's between the rubber and the metal part, maybe you can't get in there with the scouring pad, so you just, with the scouring brush. Like that. You can also get into the nitty bits of those. You can see there, well, I don't know if you can see there, but just where the join or the lip is on the edge there, I'm just using the brush in there as well. All right, so when you've done that, you rinse that off. All right, that's significantly better than what it was. Now, another thing we can do too at this point, now that I've rinsed it off, just double check your work. Another thing you can do too, and this is true for the around the drain and the sink itself, when you've cleaned it, if it still looks a little discoloured, put the plug back in, go and get some bleach out of the van, bring it in, and just put a bit of bleach in through the bottom, leave it sit 10, 20 minutes while you do other things, and then come back and rinse that very thoroughly. But always rinse everything thoroughly, but especially bleach. It is a toxic chemical. We don't want people to have that smell. We don't want people to inadvertently have it, put a bit of bleach onto a utensil or something and then eat with it. So rinse that extremely well. All right, now sometimes you may also need to do the top of the surface here. I'll do that other plug in a minute. So you know, if that's the case, if there's a bit of discoloration or something along here, you just do that. You may also need the brush, you know, if there's been a bit of build up in here, like so. Like that, just do that. Often though, the microfiber is going to be sufficient, but sometimes there is some stuff here. All right, let me finish off this other plug and we'll finish up. And sometimes things can be stubborn, and the temptation to go, oh, it's just one little spot, I've cleaned 95% of the surface, that'll do. That's not the right response. The right response is, this needs a bit more scrub, put a bit more elbow grease into that part like I just did, and get that one last spot off the plug. All right, so at that point we want to rinse our hands off, our brush, and our scouring pad, get all the excess dirt or jiff out of that. Now, as I said, this is a great sink because it's got one of these taps and we don't need the jug. Ordinarily though, most sinks don't have these types of taps. And at this point we would use the jug, fill it up, and we would just carefully rinse the surface back down into the drain. In this case, I'm hoping this will reach all the way. We can just put it on with this function, give it all a good rinse. And if you do notice anything, like I have, that we've missed, just finish that last bit off again, what I just mentioned. Instead of leaving it, put a bit extra effort in and get those last couple of bits and make sure that it is clean. The client's paying for us to clean, they're not paying for us to half clean. All right. Obviously when rinsing, be very careful. Try not to rinse all over to the floor or over the bench for that matter. Do your best to rinse it straight down the hole. And you'll often find bits that you've missed, like in this section, when you're rinsing. So I've already found a couple of places where I've missed a spot. And it's just usually a matter of getting the scouring pad and getting that spot again. All right, so I don't think this is going to reach along that surface there, so I will use the jug. So just put some water in the jug and very carefully rinse off this surface. Again, trying not to splash water all over the bench or all over the floor. Like that. Now, the reason we've kept the used microfiber is for right this moment. Now, no matter how careful you are, there's always going to be a little bit of spillage of water onto the bench, or down the front of the bench, the cupboards or something like that. Grab your microfiber that you've already used to clean and just simply mop up the excess water. And even on this part of the sink here, you can just mop up the excess water. You're not cleaning anything, you're just mopping up the water at this point. Now, it may be that you put a bit of debris back into the sink while doing this. If that's the case, just carefully rinse around the sink itself, but don't put the water back up onto the surface. So we've done that here. So we'll just do a little bit of a quick rinse. All right. So we've done that. Everything's now pretty much dry. You can put that on the floor with your pile of dirty microfibers. Get a fresh microfiber. You finish with the Jif. Put that to one side. Now we do the rest of the sink before we do the rest of the kitchen. Now these taps, you can see there's the coil. It's probably the worst tap in terms of cleaning. It's also the best tap in terms of rinsing. So you've got to take the good with the bad. So spray this surface and clean. So the coil, you're not obviously going to get inside to the hose. It's just not going to allow you to do that. But most taps, it's just a solid piece of metal, and so it's a lot easier to clean. So this coil, you just do the best you can around the coil itself, the handle, spout, etc. Now again, you pretty much, most of these taps will come up really well. They'll be quite shiny once you've got the microfiber on it. So you can probably see there, that's quite reflective. Try not to turn the tap on, happens quite frequently. Don't wet yourself if you do. Now the biggest part of taps that people miss, where the gunk is built up, is around the joins here and here. So when we get to this part, we have to be very careful to be thorough. And again, if you hold the tap, just so you don't accidentally push it on while you're doing this part. Now, if there's build-up gunk there, which there isn't here, so that's good, you again just get the brush out, get around into the corners, similar to the other things I've demonstrated. You just want to dislodge whatever's there, and then usually once you've done that, your microfiber is going to do the job then. So you've got to remember with sinks, a lot of food goes into sinks, so we've got to make sure that we get into all these bits because food can splash up. You know, the owner's standing above it, they maybe don't see under here, but we should be able to see there and make sure it's clean. All right, and we then would do this surface as well. Just give that a wipe, and you can go around the inside of the top of the sink, but the sink itself should already be clean, really, at this point.